Uh, Good afternoon, Dr. Deepak Bhatt.
Yeah, good
Am I
afternoon, sir.
audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Uh-huh. So they will join us
Yes, sir.
the moment we start. So we better begin with our
Sure.
session. Uh, le- there is a 5-line bio note of you
Yes, sir.
that Dr. Deepak Kumar A. Bhatt is Assistant Professor in English, VGEC Ahmedabad, teaching experience of 15 years, 7 national international research publications, PhD supervisor in GTU, served as a subject expert for interview committee in GTU. So this is the kind of note I have received about you. And I hand over to Dr. Deepak Bhatt. Very soon they will join with us, and there are others on YouTube.
Right, sir.
So today Dr. Deepak Bhatt is going to speak on ELT curriculum designing. That is his subject for this session. And sir, you have 1 hour.
Yes, sir. Sure.
After that, there is another speaker.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, yes, I hand over to you.
Yes, sir. Before I start and comments, I'm very happy to share that I was your student in 2007 to 2009 MA batch, and you have taught us literature. So I'm very happy that you are there to introduce me, and I am a student of this Department of English. So, sir, it's my pleasure to come here.
I am retiring next year, June
Oh,
2025.
okay, sir. And all the very best for your health also for the future. And may God bless you with all the happiness.
Okay. See you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, so dear participants, Sir has already introduced me. So I hope that you have some idea about me. And I was also a student, as I just shared with Sir, that I was also a student of this department. So it's my pleasure to be a part of this series of lecture. Uh, just I want one confirmation from the participants. Can you hear me and can you see me so that we can just start it smoothly? You can just reply in the chat box with yes. Okay, fine. I could get some of the replies that you can see and hear me. Okay. So let us start with the session of today. I have been given the topic ELT curriculum design. So basically, it is related to English as a second language, as we know. And as I have been informed that all of you are going to appear for your NET exams, right? So all the very best in advance for this exam that you are going to appear for. And I just wish that some of you clear it very well so that it opens some opportunities for you in the future. Recently, UGC has changed so many criteria, but I hope that one of the reasons to pass the national eligibility test in the concerned subject is still one of the criteria of selection in many of the universities and in many of the institutes to get recruitment. So this is one of the uh, best exams that you qualify for it. Okay. So before I start with the session, I would just like to give a few highlights, like why this curriculum design? Because we know that curriculum is a very general word, and every subject that we study, either it is from the nursery to starting with our PhD or even postdoc and anything, any curriculum which is designed it has some specific purpose. And since we are connected with English as a second language, it is one of the most important, you can say, the thing that we need to focus on. Because ELT curriculum design is a very complicated subject, or rather, we can say that curriculum design in English language is a very, very, you can say, a crucial point where you need to find out why you are teaching a particular curriculum to your students or to your learners, because it is the language which is not our mother tongue. It is a language which we do not use frequently at our homes or with friends, right? So it is very difficult for any learner to learn the language which is not their mother tongue or their native language, and to learn it with a certain pace is, a very difficult. And that is why, since I've been teaching English in Engineering Institute for quite a long time, so I can say that it's very difficult even for engineering students to cope up with a certain level of language, especially when they belong to a vernacular medium. So that is why ELT curriculum design is one of the toughest jobs that anybody can do. And that is why all the textbooks that are available with us, where they belong to, you can say, either English medium or Gujarati medium, lower level English or higher level English, but they have a certain specific purpose with which these syllabus or with which this curriculum are designed. And that is why curriculum designing is one of the most important things that we need to focus on, that I'm going to speak on today. Okay. Uh, Dear participants, if you have any kind of a query, or you can say a question, then you can definitely ask me anytime. You can obviously put that in the chat box, so I can reply, or even at the last of the session, some 10-15 minutes, we will have certain time to focus on that, right? So let us start with what is a language curriculum design. See, basically, we can say that a language curriculum design, we can start it with the very first thing, and that is what is a curriculum, or how the word curriculum comes. So basically, it is a Latin word. The meaning of this word is like, the people in they run in the race course. The same way, the meaning of the verb curriculum or currere, as it is a Latin word, that means to run. We can also say that curriculum can be defined as the subjects that are taught at an educational institution. And we can also say that the elements which are taught in a particular subject are also known as curriculum. Or we can say that any ELT expert, those who develop a particular course for their learners, so these can be termed as curriculum. See, the definition of curriculum is very vast, but we can just narrow it down with this particular, you can say, a definition, that it is some of the contents, some of the, you can say, elements which are taught to learn the language from the point of view of the learners. Basically, we can divide the curriculum in the three aspects. We can say the curriculum may be related to subject-centered, the curriculum may be learner-centered, or the curriculum may also be problem-centered. Now, here the terms, they themselves are very clear, and we can understand what is a subject-centered design. When a curriculum is designed by keeping a certain subject point of view in the mind, like for example, when you're teaching the nursery kids, the language that you're teaching to the nursery kids, so you know that the subject of this particular audience or the group of people will be limited to a certain point of level only. Beyond that, it cannot go. Otherwise, it is difficult for them to understand. It is difficult for them to grasp. Learner-centered. Here, the learner is more important. Any curriculum design which is done by keeping the learner in the mind, and this is one of the best designs of the curriculum, in which we focus on the learners and not anybody else. Because finally, the learner is more important. His or her needs are more important. How they are going to learn this particular subject, that is more important. Problem centered. At a certain point of time, we know, for example, that IELTS, TOEFL, and many of the other competitive exams are taken. So you want to teach your audience, or your, you can say, group of people, a certain limited, or let's say, for example, LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So you want to address the problems of your audience just which is related to listening or either speaking or maybe writing and reading. So that becomes a very problem-centered curriculum design. Now, in today's presentation, we will talk about these things, or these are the important aspects of curriculum design, and in which we will which we will discuss about developing how to develop a course rationale. Rationale, you know that it is one of the most important things. It generally starts with why this particular syllabus is there, or the question of why when it comes, then you have the rationale. Then describing the entry and exit level. Okay. So when you design any syllabus, right, you have to understand what will be the entry of your audience or your learners, what will be the exit of your learners. That means to say that what is their level right now, the language level, the language expertise that they have at the entry level, and where you want them to reach. So that is called entry and the exit level. Then choosing the course contents. Now, when you design a particular syllabus, naturally you have a course content. The you can say the major elements. It's like your soul, right? So your contents are more important. Which contents you are going to choose for your particular group of learners. Then you have the scope and sequence, right? When you design a particular syllabus or you can say a curriculum, then you should also understand why this particular syllabus is designed, what will be the scope and what will be its sequence. Then preparing, we can say the scope and sequence plan. And finally, planning the course structure. So in general, we will talk about these particular aspects. Now to start with, what is a course rationale? So when you are designing the course rationale, you generally get certain very ready-made answers. For examples, if your course design is giving you certain answers like the aim of the course, the content of the course, and the objective of the course, then you can say that your course rationale is perfect. Like for example, when you are designing the course rationale, you should have the very first question, that is, who is the course for? That means what is the aim of the course that you're designing? Then what is the course about? So that will give you the very correct answer, which is content. What content you want to design and what kind of teaching and learning will take place, right? So that gives you the objective of the particular course. When you design the course rationale, generally you need to prepare a 2 to 3 paragraph statement in which you will address your learners, why they are going to study this particular, you can say, the syllabus, and what will be the outcome of that. Because when you design this kind of a 2 to 3 paragraph statement, it gives you a very perfect focus and direction to your syllabus that you have designed. Naturally, any syllabus design, it has a purpose, and that is why when you are focusing on the purpose of the syllabus, you are supposed to get these answers. What are the guiding components of the course? That means what is the background of the course? Then the emphasizing the contents of the course means which are the course contents you have selected, and then providing the consistency of components of course in terms of values and goals, right? Okay. Then when you are designing the course rationale, you should also find out what will be the roles of the teachers and the learners. Like, for example, how the teacher is going to deliver, how the learner is going to grasp it. So, in order to design that, or in order to make it clear, you should very much focus on the roles of the teachers and the learners. We can say that it will enable the participants to recognize their strengths and needs in language learning. Definitely, any learner who is learning the language should know what are the strengths and weaknesses he or she has. And accordingly, he or she should, go ahead with the course contents and to give them the confidence to use English more effectively to achieve their own goals, right? So getting the confidence in learning the language is a very, very important aspect. Why? Simply because, learners, they have certain hesitations while they are using the language. They may have the fear of getting wrong. They may have the fear of, you can say, a lower confidence. These are certain things which matter with the second language learning. And that is why we should also focus on this. Then, what are the benefits and the principles of designing this course rationale? So we can say that it will develop the participant skills, independent learning outside the classroom. See, learning a second language is not just a one-time business. It is not something that you do it just for once. Learning a language is a continuous process. You daily add something into your learning of language, either through reading, listening, speaking, writing, even within the classroom, outside the classroom, with certain people, by attending the conferences, seminars, and watching the YouTube videos. So many things you can do at the time. But when you are designing a particular course, you have some certain specific goals and that you need to achieve. So these goals may be related to inside the classrooms and also outside the classrooms. Now going to the next. What will be the entry and the exit level of our learners? Because finally, these learners, they are not supposed to learn a lot of things in the language. If you are going to teach them a lot of things at the same time, they are going to get confused. They will be confused with what is grammar. They will be confused with, what are the tenses, parts of speech, articles, prepositions, conjunctions. These are not, to be taught all at once. You need to find out what is the level of your learners. And that is why there are certain tests which are taken before, giving a particular admission to a particular person in, I mean, you can say that at the level of their entry and how much they should learn before, completing the course. So that is called the entry and the exit level. So generally, we know that it has three particular aspects: elementary, intermediate, and advanced. These are the three levels of any kind of a syllabus design. And also, we can say that in language, we have generally the three levels of entry and exit. Okay. Now, while choosing the course contents, as I just discussed, like earlier we discussed about the choosing of the course contents, right? What are the things that we need to focus on? So the very first and important thing is the needs and the objectives. Why your learners want to learn this particular course? What are their objectives, right? If you answer these questions, then your course content will be very powerful. Then the course content will also have the reflection of the planner's assumptions. Like, for example, if I'm planning the course, then my own idea, understanding of the audience, of the learners, it will also affect the curriculum design. And that is why we need to focus on these aspects like the nature of language, the most essential elements of language, and how the units will be organized. By organizing, for example, we can take an example of writing course. Suppose you think of it like you are developing a writing course for a specific group of students. Then what are the things that you will focus on? So it starts with either you can say grammar, in which all the tenses and direct, indirect voice, direct, indirect speech, active, passive voice, and so on. You can include that in the grammar portion. Then the functions. When you are developing a writing course, then you should also focus on the functions of the particular language, like whether likes and dislikes, like that. Then the topics, which topics you are going to include in your course contents. So, for example, the topics of the course content may be related to some cultural transition, like, heterogeneous groups are there. So you want to, develop a writing course for them, and you are going to give them topics. So what kind of topics you are supposed to give them? Then the skills. What are the skills that you want your learners to achieve? So, for example, developing a topic sentence while you are doing the writing skills, and then the processes. For example, the pre-writing strategies, and the same way like text. For example, writing a business letter. So when you're developing a writing course, you may have these kinds of topics as the course content. The same way, if you have a speaking course contents, you can focus on the functions of the language, like, for example, expressing the opinions, then interaction skills, like, for example, opening and closing the conversation skills, and topics, like, for example, demonstration of presentations. So we are just going one by one. Like in writing, what kind of course contents can be suggested, in speaking, what kind of course content can be suggested. But always remember one thing, it all depends on the needs analysis. See, any course content or any syllabus design is based on the needs analysis. Unless the needs analysis is done, there is no way out that you can prepare a good curriculum for your learners. The same way, for example, you can say the content selection. So what kind of content selection you will do for your syllabus design? So you can say that the contents of the syllabus design may be related to subject matter. It may be related to learners' proficiency level. It may be related to current views. It may be related to conventional wisdom, which is based on research. And finally, the convenience the learners have by this particular course design. What will be the process of the course content, right? So any course content or any syllabus design, it has a certain process to follow. So we can say that it starts with brainstorming. Then naturally you will have the expert of the people who want to give their opinions on this, who will have, a very basic and clear idea of what kind of course content can be developed, right? Then the list of any possibilities, like what are the things that you want to include in the course or you want to omit from the course. Then the choice of a new topic of course. Of course, when you have a brainstorming, people will have difference of opinion about the course contents. So you can develop some topics which are good for the learners. Then you have the debates and the discussions, and finally you get the clear idea of the course content that you want to design. Before doing this, you should also focus on that what are the aims and the objectives. Because when your aims and objectives of the course are properly referred, then you can have a very good process of designing the course content. And that is why course content suggestion plus aim plus objective, this leads to a very clear course planning, right? So for example, we can say that how to design a particular course content for listening and speaking skills, right? From the LSRW, we can take first to L and S. So how to develop a course content for listening and speaking skills. Like for example, you can say that asking questions, right? In the listening and speaking skills module, you can have the course contents like asking questions, opening and closing the conversations, expressing opinions and dealing with misunderstandings, describing experience, social talk, telephonic talks. See, you can say that certain contents of the language, they are always, you can say, universal. They may be applied in all the situations to all the learners. But this does not mean that it is the same for everybody. Because I'm referring to this one and the same thing, that it all depends on the needs analysis of the learners. Once the needs analysis is done, and there are ways to do the needs analysis, you can do it by a group discussion, you can give them a test paper, you can, ask them to give their opinions on certain topics, and that will lead to a certain needs analysis, right? So when you want to design the course content, naturally these questions will affect you. You should definitely ask these questions when you're designing the course. And these questions may be related to like, are all the suggested topics necessary? Because in the course content, sometimes what happens, our perceptions, our assumptions, our experience of teaching, these things also affect. So we should also ask this question when the course contents are designed, that are the topics or all the topics which are taken, they are necessary or not? Has any important topic been omitted or it has been skipped? You should check it twice. Is there sufficient time to cover this course? That is more important because sometimes in language curriculum designing, in a semester or you can say in a year, you want to teach them a lot of contents of the course, but they are not possible, right? Because after all, the practice of the language, right? The language in use, it is more important, and that is why you should give them sufficient time to uh, you know hands on. Like for example, you ask them to do the listening and speaking with the use of technology, right? You can also ask certain question like, has sufficient priority been given to the most important areas or not, right? So the important areas which are there for your learners, you should also focus on that, right? Now coming to determining the scope and sequence of your curriculum design. So when you're talking about the scope, what is the scope of curriculum design? We can say that it is the breadth and depth of, you know, coverage of items in the course. So what are the items that you want to cover in the course? So you may have certain points like what range of content you want to include in the syllabus design, what extent of topic you should, extent of topic should be studied by your learners. You can take an example of the listening and speaking rationale, like describing the experience. It can be a part of your syllabus design. How much time, how much will be included in relation to this topic? So naturally, you have a very vast topic. Let's say you want to teach them listening, but you have to find out the modules that only these 4 to 5 modules can be included because that is what the time permits. And how many periods of time in the course, like how much time you want to take for a particular module. Then the order of the contents. When you're talking about the sequence, what is it? The order of the contents, right? So your order of the contents may be from simple to complex. Like you can take some grammar contents, you can take some reading course, or you can also take literary comprehension course, right? Then the chronology. So, for example, you can take up a writing skill for developing your course, and it may have 4 stages: brainstorming, drafting, revising, and editing. So, any kind of writing course, it will have these 4 particular stages. You can also take up an example of proficiency level. So, naturally, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So, these are the 4 levels that you have. And you need to design, I mean, you need to select which one would be the first, which would be the second. Accordingly, you can choose. Now, while determining the sequence and the scope of the course contents, you should also focus on the needs of the learners outside the classroom. Only within the classroom, experience is given by the teachers. But when the learners are in the outside atmosphere, or you can say outside the classroom where the actual language has to be used, so you need to also give them certain social survival curriculum skills. Like, for example, the relationship to other topics and cross topics, importance of learners' life, and for example, ease of contextualization. Unless the language which is used is contextualized, it is not going to work, right? Like, for example, people say that, okay, you try to learn 10 new words daily, right? 10 new words daily. So when you learn the new words, you write it down, you write down the meaning of the words, but that is not the sufficient thing. You need to understand that these words also need to be used in some context, in some speech, or in some, you can say, interaction, in some conversation. So you need to have a practice of these things, then and only then this will work. Now, social survival skills that we just said about, right? So what can be the social survival skills, or what can be the topics which can be related to social survival skills, right? So we can say that number of varieties of topics are there, like basic literary skills, personal identification. You can give these kinds of topics to your learners so that they focus on these and they try to give their opinions on these particular topics. The topic may be related to money, shopping, time and date, telephone, health. Because see, these are certain social topics or social survival curriculum contents, which definitely they are going to, speak about, or they are going to speak on with either their family or friends or other people, right? You can also ask them to speak on emergencies, directions, transportation, housing, post office, then banking and bills, social language, clarification, right? These can be some of the topics which can be included for the social survival curriculum. Now, talking about the orders of the content, right? So orders of the course content, they are very important. And for that, what are the prerequisite learnings that we need to understand? So for example, the learners should have a proper grammar basis, means they are very clear with the grammar and all these parts, means they can basically understand, they can write, they can speak, right? They can read with without any problem. That's more important when you are, asking for the prerequisites of the learnings. Then naturally, whole to part and part to whole. So for example, reading course to writing and the comparisons between these kinds of things. Then whatever old knowledge they are possessing, and we need to lead them to a certain level of new knowledge while teaching them the language. Then there are certain other more aspects which are related to scope and sequence planning. So we can say that the listing of the unit, the contents, and the time which is allocated to these contents. Then the unit by unit description of the course and the cross reference, or we can say the syllabus items. So these are the parts of scope and sequence plan. Now, while planning the course structure, because after all, the course structure is also important. So when you are planning the course structure, the selection of the syllabus framework is more important. And that is why what will be included in that? The major elements, the basis for the course focus, and the basis for course content. Not only that, but we are also supposed to find out what are the instructional materials that we can give to the learners. Because finally, whatever subjects or the topics that we are teaching, but certain handouts, certain reference materials, these will also help the learners to learn it better. I still remember that when I used to teach in a school, there were learners who used to ask, or you can say my students used to ask, sir, which particular grammar book to refer, or can I use a ready reckoner? These are kind of certain things that are very much available in the market. So when your course contents, they have certain particular topics, but when these course contents are not giving the proper sufficient learning material, then it is very difficult for your learners to follow up with you can say the additional material. And that is why always a good course will always have proper reference books. It will have proper, you can say, instructional materials which can be used. And nowadays you can see that due to the use of technology, we have a lot of e-contents available. Now days are gone when we just used to refer to a book only and understand the things. But right now, even with I can say my experience with engineering students, they have certain videos to watch, and a few days before the exam, they just learn all these things, right? But again, a good course or a designing of a good course is more important for making the learners learn that right level of language. And that is why, while teaching or learning English as a second language, we need to focus on how to design a particular course content, right? Till now, I guess I have made things clear, I hope. Any question, if our audience has, then I would like to take up in between also. If you have any question that you would like to ask, definitely you can ask. Anybody who would like to ask or would like to add something? Okay, so I hope that things are going well, right? So shall we continue with the further part? Okay,
Yes.
fine. Okay. So now see, this particular image is taken from Richards, right? 1990, the book is The Language Teaching Metrics, right? So Richards basically, he gives the 5 level of, developing any curriculum, or we can say a second language curriculum to be precise, because we are talking about English as a second language. So any language that the syllabus, or we can say the curriculum design is done it has to go through certain things. So, as I was just referring to this point again and again, it is related to needs analysis. That is the first and foremost step for designing any curriculum. The second is the goals and objectives. So you should be very clear with like what are the goals and the objectives of this particular curriculum development. Then it comes with the syllabus design, right? Generally, people, I have seen even in universities, uh, not to name any particular university, but I have seen at certain places that certain syllabus in the curriculum designing, they are developed on the assumptions or even on the ideas which the syllabus planner has. Now, they may not have the relations to reality. Like, for example, what kind of language the engineering students will need to sit in the placement or to do the job or to, make a presentation. Many times they do not have the idea. They do not belong to a particular language, you can say expertise. They do not belong to any English language teaching background or literature background. And, they just design the syllabus. So you may understand very simply how haphazard and how clumsy the whole syllabus design will come out, right? So remember that any language curriculum development, it has to be decided or designed by a language expert and not by anybody else. Then a certain methodology, right? So what will be the methodology of teaching this particular second language course? And finally comes with the testing and evaluation, right? So we can say needs analysis. So to start with, what is needs analysis? So when we do the needs analysis, we need to find out what is the purpose and what will be the process to address this particular, you can say, the purpose. Identifying and validating the needs of our learners, right? Sometimes what happens, the learners are just confused with the grammar topics. Years pass, but they are not able to come out of that grammatical mindset that, whether to use is or are or was or, has. They are just confused with that, right? So we need to find out the needs of our learners, where they are stuck. And when we address these particular needs and we lead them to a certain level, then it is effective. Rather than just teaching one particular course to everybody is not the solution of designing any language curriculum. And that is why we have a very broad branch called English for specific purposes. This has been very, very popular in the Western countries, in the, you can say, in the universities of the Western countries, where they have a very different model of syllabus. Let's say, for example, medical students, then engineering students, then arts and humanities, then sciences, and then commerce background. So all these things are based on, you can say, the needs analysis, right? Because finally, the learners, they need to establish the priorities. What are the things that they need to learn? Why they need to learn these things, right? And in this needs analysis, the teachers, the learners, the administrators, and even the staff, all these people need to be included. But unfortunately, many a times this process does not happen as it should. And that is why we have problems in the needs analysis, right? Now, while doing the needs analysis, there are certain factors that also, affect us as a syllabus designer, or you can say as a curriculum developer. So, for example, institutional factors, the place where you are working, the administration, right? So, there are certain questions which we can see here. For example, what leadership is available within the school or college to support change and to help teachers cope with change, right? Teachers may have vibrant ideas. Teachers may be very much flexible and they want to teach the best of the language to the students. But is the institution permitting? That's a big question. Then what are the school or colleges, physical resources, including classroom facilities, media and other technological resources and library, right? So, see, for example, for learning the language, you are also supposed to have a language lab. This has become very trendy nowadays, because you have headphones, you learn the language. Even we know that government is providing the Namo tablets. Recently, it has not been done for quite 1 or 2 years, but uh, quite a long time, government has been giving these tablets for the students, and they can very much they can be very much used to learn the language with the e-resources that are available. Then what is the role of textbooks and other instructional materials? What is staff morale like among English teachers? See, many a times what happens, English teachers themselves do not promote English language. They themselves do not talk to the students in English language. That is where the lack is. And that is why you need to find out this situation analysis. Are the staff members using the language, at least the English teachers? Because, that affects the whole atmosphere of learning the language. Even in my institute, there are, hoardings, or you can say rather small banners which are there, communicate in English. So small things like this, they also affect the atmosphere, the environment, right? What problems do teachers face and what is being done about them? What administrative support is available within the school or college, and what is communication like between teachers and the administration? What kind of reputation does the institution have for delivering successful language programs? And how committed is the institution to attain or to attaining excellence? Right? So these may be the institutional factors. We can very quickly go to the teacher factors, because finally the teachers are also important. They have to teach the language. So here there may be certain questions which are related to the teachers. What kind of teachers currently teach in the target schools or colleges or institutions? What is their typical background, training, experience, and motivation? And how proficient are they in English? So, see, language teachers, they do not just become teachers by accident. They are supposed to have a certain level of training, or you can say the experience. Only then it will pass through them and the students will be able to learn it, right? What kinds of beliefs do the teachers typically hold concerning the key issues in teaching? What teaching loads do teachers have? See, this is one of the most important things. When you have given, let's say, for example, 20 and 30 hours of teaching load to the teachers will not be that efficient. And he or she will naturally teach not just the language, but any other subject without any concern. Because, there you are not giving the teachers that space to, be flexible, to be at ease. And that is why these are the teacher factors which are important. What are the typical teaching methods teachers use and believe in? There are traditional methods available, like grammar translation method, where just focus on the fill in the blanks, or pointing out to only certain words and saying that okay, this belongs to present tense, this belongs to past tense. Those kinds of things just do not work, right? You should have a communicative language teaching approach, or a communicative language curriculum design. Then, to what extent are teachers open to change? Because sometimes it is very difficult to change the teachers also, because they have taught certain things at a certain level only, right? Then what opportunities do they have for retaining through in-service or other kinds of opportunities, and what benefits are the proposed new syllabuses or curriculum or materials likely to offer the teachers? Then we can say the adoption factors. So, what are the things which are related to adapting certain changes? So, for example, what advantages does the curriculum change offer? Is the motivation perceived to be more advantageous than current practices? Right? We can take up one or two out of this. Like, is the motivation very complicated and difficult to understand? So these are also the things which are related to the adoption factors that we need to focus on. Others you can read just which are there on the screen. I'm not just going with word by word. Okay, so we can skip a certain part of the presentation, because finally, what it talks about is like when you are designing a particular course, you need to ask certain questions to yourself as a teacher. Like, for example, uh, what, where are you from, and where your most of the learners have spent their life. So their language acquisition will be accordingly like that. You need to focus on that. You also need to find out which other languages your learners know. Whatever previous experience of learning language they have, did they have any previous learning language experience, whether it is English as a second language, first language, or like that. What I am just showing on the screen is one of the research paper survey which was conducted through the, I mean, among the teachers of English before giving them the training. And these questions were addressed to them in the curriculum design. For example, what do you know about the school or the college or the students or your classes and other teachers, right? And what do you hope to gain from this course? So these kinds of questions need to also be addressed. What special concerns or questions do you have about teaching English? Because after all, many a times, without getting any teaching level degree, if somebody has become a teacher, then it becomes very difficult for them to adapt the curriculum that is given to them. Okay. Then very quickly going to the goals and objectives. Okay. So the goals and objectives of the course. Goals can be defined as general statements of intended outcomes, and objectives can be defined as specific or various types, like, for example, behavioral, skills based, content based, and proficiency scales. Any syllabus design, it will have various types. Like, for example, if you're designing a structural syllabus, then it will focus on grammar. If your syllabus design is topical, then you will focus on topics like health, food, and clothing. If your syllabus design is based on skills, then you will focus on listening and speaking activities. And for example, some hybrid versions are also available in which you can mix up any of these aspects of syllabus design. Then the methodology of designing the course. So goals, objectives, and contents are very important prerequisites of designing any methodology of the course. In the methodology of course design, you will focus on the approach, the roles of the teachers, the roles of the learners, learning activities, or you can say tasks and experiences, and finally the instructional materials. And finally, it comes with the testing. So, what are the testing types which are available? We can say two types are available. One is summative, one is formative. Summative test, when you are taking, you will be referring to interviews, tests, or questionnaires. But if you are using a formative style of testing and evaluation, you will focus on the checklist and observations, questions, and enrollments, right? So these are certain things which we can say they are related to the curriculum design. And as I just informed, that there are certain ways in which we can, develop a particular course in a particular way. So we need to remember these things. We need to identify the needs of our stakeholders or the learners, create a clear list of learning goals and outcomes, identify the constraints, what will be the problems they will be facing as students or learners, consider creating a curriculum map, identify the instructional methods, establish evaluation methods, and remember that curriculum design is not a one-step process. It is an ever-going process. These are the factors that we need to remember or we need to focus on, that the small amount of time available of the course is one of the biggest hindrances. The large size of our classrooms, they are also one of the problems. Thanks to NEP, you can say the new education policy, that they have given a certain limit to the classrooms, the students in the classroom. So definitely these all things affect the language learning as well. The wide range of proficiency in the class, because everybody is not having the same level of language. The immediate survival needs of the learners, the lack of appropriate reading materials. The teacher's lack of experience and training can also be one of the problems we need to keep in mind. The learner's use of the first language in the classroom, that is also one of the things we need to remember, and the need for the learners to be more autonomous, right? So with this, I end up my presentation. And before I end up my presentation, I will have a small link for you in which whatever we have discussed, right, till now, I just wish that if you could attempt that small questionnaire, or you can say the test, then it will be very nice that you will be able to, assess yourself after this presentation, how much you have understood. And all these questions are related to just, you know, our presentation, or not just the presentation, but we can say the curriculum design, right? ELT curriculum design. So I'm just sharing a questionnaire here in the chat box, and please try to attempt. There are just 8 questions. You can just click on the answer that you feel appropriate, submit it, and then you will be able to view your own score. And I have taken a few questions of the certain NET exams also. So this will help you understand the topic very well. So everybody, please go through this chat box link, click on that, and attempt the questions, and then you may submit it. Once you submit your test, please write done in the chat box so that I'll be able to see how many of you have done. Okay, I could see one response. Jamie Joshi has completed. What about other participants? If you have completed, then you may just respond in the chat box. Okay, another participant, Geeta, has also completed. So these questions basically which I have taken up and shared with you, somewhat like these questions you may also get in your exams, right? Because curriculum designing is a step-by-step process. And as I just shared in my presentation, what are the prerequisites and what are the concerns that we need to keep in mind while designing any curriculum uh, of second language. So keep these things in your mind when you are reading some material related to your exams, right? That any curriculum designing, it will have these particular aspects to be considered in mind, right? Uh, if anybody has any question that I would also like to parallelly take up, if you have any doubt or question in mind regarding the curriculum, you may also ask. And sir, we have almost done. Only a few participants are submitting their questionnaire. Otherwise, we have done with the presentation, and they will be able to see their score also.
Okay, thank you very much. Uh, you know, uh, ours are uh, literature students, so
Yes, sir.
they have no idea of curriculum design.
Yes, sir.
So they must be listening to it for the first time. And so they are little lethargic, not
Okay,
very quick. I
right.
saw your face and continuously felt that I have seen you somewhere, but I was not remembering where did I see you.
Yes, sir. You
So
were my teacher.
yes. So on behalf of the department, on behalf of my colleagues and student participants, we thank you that
Thank you
you
so much,
spent
sir.
your time and shared your ideas with us. So let's hope we meet like this again in near future.
Sure, sir.
Okay. So what
Yes,
are
sir.
you doing right now? Means
Yes, sir.
you are.
I am, yeah, I am actually working as assistant professor at Government Engineering College in Ahmedabad. And
Mhm,
basically, the department head, Dr. Parul Popat, we were together. She was in the Gandhinagar College, I was in Ahmedabad College. And
mhm,
we were selected in the same GPSC batch of 2011.
mhm.
Yeah, and many of
Okay.
our seniors and juniors, they are also in touch. So many of our department students are there who are right now colleagues in engineering institutes.
Okay. Very nice.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. See you. We will meet again.
Sure,
Thank
sir.
you.
Sure.
Thank you for it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Ah. Student friends, you stay put. Another speaker will be here in a minute. Okay. So very nice of you. Some 16 have turned up and they're on. सुनील भाई ने क्या ऊपर से हूँ? Hello, student friends. Sir is joining within 2-3 minutes. So just stay put.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Sorry, very sorry on behalf of Parul Madam.
No, 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 sir. Please, please.
Mistakenly, she wrote to 4:30.
Okay, okay. That's okay. Fine. I was ready.
We were searching
So
for you at 3:30.
okay. No issues, sir. No issues. Ji, sir.
No problem.
Uh,
Okay, so dear student
so,
friends,
yeah.
Dr. Sunil Shah is here, and he is going to speak on ELT methods and approaches. Uh, Let me introduce him. Sunil Shah, PhD, is Professor, Department of English at Veer Narmad, South Gujarat University, Surat. He has teaching experience of 15 years in the field of higher education. His areas of specialization are ELT, corpus linguistics, and material production, among others. He is, he is a recognized PhD guide with Veer Narmad, South Gujarat University. 4 students have completed their PhD so far, and 6 students are currently pursuing PhD under his guidance. He has also provided his services as a resource person in the seminars, workshops, and training programs at various institutes, schools, and companies across the state in the areas like academic writing, communication skill, web tools for teaching and assessment, professional development, and so on. He has published several books and research articles at the international and national levels. He visited the United Kingdom from April 4 to April 15, 2013 to carry out academic work related to the Mobigam project sponsored by the British Academy at the University of Leeds, and presented a paper at IATEFL conference, Liverpool. He also visited the Netherlands from April 26 to May 24, 2008 as member of the Rotary Group Study Exchange team sponsored by Rotary National District. So here is Dr. Sunil Shah. And now I hand over to Dr. Sunil
Yeah.
Shah,
Yeah.
and he will speak on ELT methods and approaches.
Yeah. Thank you very
So,
much, sir.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
I will first share my screen with the help of technical team. Yeah. Okay. Can somebody please confirm if my PPT is visible?
yes,
Yes, sir,
visible.
it's visible.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. So basically, as I'm told, this session is for 1 hour. I'll be meeting you again tomorrow for 1 hour. In 2 hours, we'll try to have a bird's eye view in terms of approaches and methods, right? So when it comes to ELT methods and approaches, they are part of very important discussion. Here I have shared 2 important books with all of you. In the field of ELT, when it comes to methods and approaches, techniques and principles in language teaching by Larson and Freeman. And the second very popular book, which is Approaches and Methods in English Language Teaching by Richards and Rogers. So basically, my presentation is based on these 2 books. There are many other books available in the market as well when it comes to methods and approaches. However, I consider these 2 books as the most authentic one. The best part of Larson and Freeman is it gives you the practical approach. There are various examples given in terms of how actually what happens in the classroom. There are examples of real classroom situations given, and accordingly from the teaching done in the classroom at whichever level, school level or college level, the principles of various methods and approaches are discussed. So, as students of English language and literature, I request you to go through these books. The PDFs are available online, and you can also purchase them. To start with, I will quote Crescent here, where he talks about, the best methods are therefore those that supply comprehensible input in low anxiety situations containing messages that students really want to hear. These methods do not force early production in the second language, but allow students to produce when they are ready. The term ready is very important here because it's about language learning. It's about language acquisition. Language acquisition and language learning, these are again two terms which I'm not going to discuss right now. But the focus here is when they are ready, recognizing that improvement comes from supplying communicative, comprehensible input and not from forcing, correcting production. Okay, so that is Stephen Cresson, very well-known linguist, which you are all aware of. He talks about comprehensible input, and he says the best methods. So over like 200 years or so, especially in last 100 years, we have been talking about, like people have been talking about various methods, approaches. Nowadays, we are talking about communicative approach. Now we are also talking about eclectic approach, combining all the good points from various methods and approaches. But the ultimate aim is language learning, language development. So which methods are the best when it comes to classroom? Okay, so I won't be able to tell you which method is the best, or historically we'll study them one by one, and we'll also be aware of how this has changed. What are the changes which has happened, which has led to, for example, right from grammar translation method to direct method, other methods in between. And now we are talking about communicative approach. We are also talking about Montcalm approach, and ultimately the eclectic approach, right? So here, Crescent talks about when students are ready, and here he talks about comes from supplying communicative and comprehensible input and not from forcing or correcting production. What he is generally trying to say here is whatever method or approach you adapt. Okay, right now we are using it simultaneously in terms of the use of terms method and approaches. We are going to discuss that also further in our session today. So it should come naturally. Okay, and there should be not be any compulsion. So then we'll have to think of which is the best method we should apply in the class. Secondly, he talks about language acquisition does not require extensive use of conscious grammatical rules and does not require tedious drills. Okay, and I'm sure all of you will agree to this, what Stephen Cresson is saying here, that it does not require use of conscious grammatical rules. Okay, like any language, when it comes to language acquisition, our mother tongue, okay, we don't learn that language through grammatical rules, okay, or tedious drill, continuous practice. It comes naturally. So people have been talking about, can't that happen when it comes to second language learning or foreign language learning? And therefore, various methods and approaches have been developed. We are gradually going to talk about them. So basically, my presentation is divided into two parts. The first session today, which I am going to discuss, I will take you till from history of language teaching, whether it started from Greek and Latin, And then I will take you to grammar translation method. And then we are going to talk a bit about direct method. Okay, that will be today's work. Tomorrow, tomorrow in the morning session, we'll be discussing various other methods and approaches. So when it comes to methods and approaches, history, as you all are aware of, history is very significant in even in literature and ELT as well, and otherwise also, if we talk when we talk about history in general. Historical review of language teaching methods, it sets a stage for what is happening in present, right? So when you know history in terms of language, in terms of development of methods, you understand why a particular. Yeah, sorry. Shall I continue? Hello.
Video.
Shall I
No,
continue,
question
sir?
answer session will be at the end of the session.
Okay, no,
Okay.
I heard somebody saying something, therefore I stopped for a bit.
No
Yeah.
problem. No
Anyways,
problem.
yeah,
You
thank you,
continue.
sir. So we have to understand how historically the development in methods have taken place, the continuous evolution of teaching methods, and recurring concerns in language teaching. Okay, so earlier, as we are aware of, it was like teacher-centered classroom. Then the shift was there. We are talking about learner-centered classroom. And gradually, the methods which have been applied in the classroom, they have seen a change. Okay, and there are various theories. For example, if we talk about behaviorism, cognitivism, socio-cognitivism, that is how they have changed according to the needs and the success of a particular method. And as it is said, nothing is constant but change, right? So change is one thing which is constant, which is happening today also. So today also a particular method or approach is applied in a classroom, and tomorrow it will be something else, right? So that is how we are going to lead this discussion further. Historical perspective, the changes in method reflect changes in goals of language learnings. So what is the goal of language learning? For instance, earlier it was, memorizing things, drill, or production of perfect language. So the shift from reading comprehension, now people are talking about practical usage, oral proficiency, and the influence of various theories. Evolving theories of language learning have shaped teaching methods. The way I talked about behaviorism earlier, it was input and process. There, input and output. There was no process. Then came cognitivism, which talks about input, process, and output. Then came socio-cognitive theory, which talks about input, process, output, and society. Okay, so all those changes have occurred over a period of time, and that is how there have been changes in the methods. There have been changes in the way in which people have taught in the classroom or learners have learned in the classroom. So these issues are recurring, have been central to language throughout the history as demonstrated. Like some methods have worked, then there was a downfall of that particular method, and then the next method came into existence, keeping in mind the earlier method. Like direct method was a result of what happened to grammar translation method. Some things didn't work with grammar translation method, and therefore the changes. And after direct method, audiolingual method, and so on. So one method which was used by people at a particular time, that has lasted for a few years, but again, because of the changes in which the way in which learners learned, methods have also changed. And we are aware that we are a multilingual world. We are talking about language learning in a multilingual world. Okay, and it is a norm. Language teaching has always been crucial due to practical need of second language or foreign language proficiency. What are the practical needs of a particular language? And there that according to those needs, there have been changes in methods, because people were talking about like language should not be learned only for reading, or language is not only for elite class. It should be for everyone to use in day-to-day life. So that is how things have changed. Now, all of you are aware that Latin, okay, Greek and Latin, 500 years ago, Latin was dominant language of education, commerce, religion, government in the Western world. And in order to teach Latin also, there were some methods adapted. Okay, so Latin's role gradually, when French importance start was like other languages were getting importance, like French, Italian, English. The British Empire is the major reason for the rise of English, as it is said that the sun in the British Empire never sets. Okay, gained importance due to political, and German was also one of the language, and this political changes in this and on the in the globe. Okay, same thing was implemented in language teaching also, like Greek and Latin was given importance, then gradually that role came to French, Italian, and as we know, English gained importance due to the changes in European political system. Now, again, what was the decline of Latin as a language? There are various reasons. British Empire, as I said. Apart from that, it ceased to be a living language. Its study focused more on developing intellectual abilities rather than real life communication. And people started feeling that real life communication was more important. We should not restrict ourselves to intellectual abilities. Okay, so letting teaching and methods emphasize grammar and rhetoric. So that was the focus of how Latin was taught earlier. Okay, but you see in grammar translation method, the same method were transferred. Okay, in teaching of English also, the way in which Latin was taught, in the same way, English was also taught. So that is the transfer which I was talking about. There are various people, Locke, Montaigne, they proposed changes in that was 16th and 17th centuries to make Latin teaching more practical and engaging. But till that time, they were working on that because of the political situations which we discussed earlier. The focus shifted from Latin and Greek to other languages. So that was the major reason. So in 18th century, modern languages entered European school curriculums, which also included English, French. They were initially taught using methods developed for Latin. Okay, that is what I said earlier. The way in which Latin was taught. In the same way, this modern languages were taught, where the focus was on grammar rules, vocabulary, and translation exercises. If you study grammar translation method in detail, you'll realize that. So this is a chart I'm sure you are able to see on your screens. Briefly, we'll have a look at it. That we talk about English language in particular, okay? So 18th century, 19th. So beginning, it started like in most of the books which you refer to, it is going to start with grammar translation method, and which was most popular. So from 1900 to 1940. And simultaneously, as you can see here, direct method also started emerging late in 1910, 20s, right? And then gradually it lost. And after grammar translation method, people started talking about direct method. And then the shift was towards audiolingualism, and then other methods, designer methods, as they call it, the silent way, total physical response, communicative, community language learning, Suggestopedia, and then communicative language teaching. And then in the last, as I told you earlier, nowadays people are talking about eclecticism, where the best thing uh, is to be used in the classroom, which makes difference. Okay, keeping in mind the learners. Okay, there no particular method or approach is going to help you because the students, every batch you have new students, area wise also students are different. India is a multilingual country we are talking about, so the needs of students of Gujarat, even further, if I talk about districts also, district wise also the needs of students are different, state wise obviously, and therefore people are talking a lot about needs analysis these days, that proper needs analysis should be done, and accordingly a particular method should be adopted by the teacher so that actual learning takes place, and that process becomes faster in terms of language learning. So this is a chart which briefly tells you about in which years grammar translation method was active. Okay, gradually because of the loopholes, then came direct method and other methods during the course of time. Now, grammar translation method, so in 20th century became the standard for teaching foreign languages. So even if we talk about world wars, right, there was a need for people to learn and to be able to communicate with the allies. Okay, and there were various other factors. Trade also increased. Okay, so there was a need of a particular method to learn new language. But the problem with grammar translation method, just hold on. I'll just connect the charger. Yeah, sorry for that. So became the standard for teaching foreign languages. The emphasis of grammar translation method was written language. The focus was on written language over spoken language. Then involved translating sentences that often bore little relation to real life communication. Like students were able to communicate whatever rote learning they did. But when it comes to when it came to real life communication, it became difficult for them to actually experiment or use language. So 19th century textbooks, they were codified languages into rules of morphology and syntax. Oral practice was minimal, and the focus was on written exercises and mechanical translation. And today, when we are in the age of MODCOM approach or communicative approach, we understand that when historically, if we look at how grammar translation method was taught, we understand that whatever was done in terms of grammar translation method, okay, it was wrong. But again, when I say that, you have to remember that even today, if you have to use some elements of grammar translation method, it's not problematic at all. It depends on the need of students, and that is what we call eclectic approach, taking best things. Okay, typical sentences from translation were often artificial and disconnected from practical use. So understanding the historical context helps us that how present contemporary methods have evolved. Okay, so many current issues in language teaching are not new, but historically, what has happened in terms of problems or present situation, that is the most important thing which we should be aware of. It started right from Latin and Greek to modern languages, and then how it was tried out with grammar translation method. So grammar translation method developed from German scholarship, okay? And there were people who worked on it. There are names. And it was also known as Prussian method in US. Okay, so there were different names given, but majorly it is known as grammar translation method. So the goal was to learn a language to read its literature. Okay, you look at today, the goal is real life communication. Earlier the goal was different. Okay, so you have to understand that the method, these methods were aligned with the objectives of what you want to do with language. Okay, and mental discipline and intellectual development, that is what the goal of language learning. And obviously when the goals are to read its literature of other language or intellectual development, the methods will be different. Okay, so detailed grammar analysis was there, translation exercises into in and out of target language, and these exercises were mechanical. Okay, nowadays we use translation as a method. Okay, when it comes and using translation in the classroom is also a good exercise. It helps, but how you use it is important. So focus was on reading, writing. Okay, and when we talk about LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, the sequence is this is the sequence which needs to be followed, right? First, it comes, LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And here, if we talk about grammar translation method, the major emphasis was on reading and writing, and little attention was given to speaking and listening skills. So that was the problem. The focus was on vocabulary and grammar. Vocabulary taught through bilingual list and rote memorization. Okay, so again, active passive vocabulary was difficult in terms of bifurcation. You learn a few vocabulary, but they remain part of your post passive vocabulary. And when you don't use those words in a real day-to-day situation, they vanish, they evaporate after some time. So grammar rules presented in practical, and this was, you know, we'll talk about that inductive or deductive approach. This was deductive in nature. Okay, so sentence-based teaching, sentences as the basic unit of teaching, focus on translating sentences to aid easier learning. Okay, so this was what happened with grammar translation method. And the emphasis was on accuracy. Errors were not tolerated. Okay, high standards of accuracy in translation. Importance due to formal written examination. That was the main crux. That importance due to formal written examination, that was considered more important when it came to spoken or oral communication. It was, and the approach adopted here was deductive in nature, deductive grammar teaching, grammar taught deductively, presentation of rules. Okay, and some of you, those who have studied in vernacular medium and sometimes in like English medium also, the same, the textbook may be based on communicative approach, but sometimes the teachers may adapt grammar translation method to teach. So that comes with proper teacher training, and there are multiple issues, they go with it. But it right now we are not going to discuss that. Practice through translation exercises, structured and systematic approach to grammar. Role of native language used for instruction. Okay, comparison between native language and target language. Now you can imagine the situation of students when they were there. It must be difficult for them. Okay, as Preshan earlier pointed out, which I used as a quote, that it should be stress free, it should come naturally. Okay, so grammar translation method, it dominated from 1840 to almost 1940s. still used in some parts of the world, okay, but criticized for being tedious and frustrating for students, okay. And obviously, so this was the reason why grammar translation method was these are the negative aspects of grammar translation method, and gradually people started pointing out that these are the negative aspects and therefore we need change. Context of use still employed where literary text comprehension is primary. Little need for speaking knowledge in such context. So again, context in use, real life communication was something which was not given importance here. And there was absence of theoretical foundation. Like people say that if we, theoretical foundation, behaviorism can be applied to grammar translation method, where input and process is there, input and output is there, but there is no process. So no underlying theory accurately which supports literature justifying this method, no connection to linguistic psychology or education theory. Okay. I'm sorry. So these are the things which led to the next movement, which is also known as the reform movement, emerged in mid. Okay, this led to reform movement emerged in mid to late 19th century. And this was opposed to the grammar translation method because of the problems which grammar translation. It laid the foundation for new language teaching approaches. Okay, it laid the reform movement. And then it also laid foundation to the direct method, which we are going to discuss now. So dominant language teaching method, grammar translation, only it focused on reading and writing, heavy emphasis on grammar rules and vocabulary. These were the problems which led to the reform movement, where the importance, people started talking about increased communication. Okay, like there was increased communication in Europe as discussed earlier, and therefore when you learn a second language or a foreign language, there was a need for communication. Then there was a demand for oral proficiency, then market for conversation and phrase books, then criticism of public education system. All these factors combined together, people were talking about grammar translation method, that this is not going to work. Okay, and therefore the reform movement. Early innovators in this reform movement, if you know these names, Marshall, he talked about child language learning as a model, emphasized on meaning and reading before other skills. Okay, the Pendergast, he talks about contextual clues and memorized phrases. He was the one who talked about structural syllabus. And then you have Godwin, he's a very well-known theorist. He talked about language learning through sequence of action. The next slide talks about the sequence of actions and how language can be used. Okay, so this is example of the Godwin method, which takes to like for example the door. Okay, then the next sentence is I walk towards the door and I draw near the door, I get to the door, I stop at the door, I open the door. So these sentences are, they are around the main, the phrase towards the door or near the door. And that is how, according to Godwin, language should be used. It should be contextualized. And then that is how gradual, what we call, if I can say, it's a snowball effect. It starts with a small thing and gradually it takes shape in form of a language. So here the emphasis was meaning in context. Okay. And use of gestures and actions which was nowhere tried out in grammar translation method. So the impact was these people highlighted need for speaking proficiency. Ideas were developed outside mainstream education and lacked means of widespread dissemination. Okay, so this is how people started talking about the new methods, and reform movement emerged in 1980. Like as we have discussed earlier, grammar translation method was already talked about. Okay, but again at the same time simultaneously, and the reform movement took some time. Linguistics and phonetics, and then foundation of International Phonetic Association in 1886. Okay, principles of reform movement, study of spoken language, phonetic training for improvement in pronunciation, use of conversation tables and dialogues, inductive approach towards grammar. Okay, as earlier we discussed in grammar translation method, it was deductive approach was used. Okay, from rule to the smaller parts. Inductive approach means to start from a scratch and gradually building it further. Teaching meanings within the target language. Okay, and that too, everything was done in context, and that was more meaningful that we understand. Okay, Henry Switz, he was the key reformer. Sound methodological principles, emphasis on scientific analysis of language and psychology. So these are few names. I'll be sharing my PowerPoint presentation with you, which will be useful to in future, because there is one section in your net slate or now PhD also in examination where ELT portion is there, and questions like this appear when it comes to other. We are going to discuss that tomorrow. Okay, so communicative competence, linguistic competence, these are the terms. They will appear when you'll take the test. Okay, Del Himes and other who have contributed to this area. Okay, and these are the people who criticized grammar translation method. They emphasized on phonetics and speech pattern. So oral discourse was given more important and brought changes. So whatever the beliefs of these reformers, the beliefs of these reformers were spoken language is primary. Application of phonetics in teaching should be there. Hearing language before seeing it written. Okay. Now in grammar translation method, writing was given more importance, and context, practice in context of such a situation, and inductive approach in teaching grammar as well. Okay, and minimizing translation. Now, when it comes to direct method, you all are aware of translation has no space. Sometimes it can be used, but when we talk about direct method, which we'll be discussing now, it has no space. So theoretical foundations, principle based on scientific approach to language study, LSRW, it is scientific enough. Early development of applied linguistics. This laid groundwork for future methods like direct method. Okay, so from Greek and Latin to grammar translation method to direct method. This is how, as history, you will have to remember these things. Shift from grammar translation method to oral proficiency. Early innovators which contributed to this reform movement, and foundation of modern language teaching methods, followed by grammar translation method. So this leads us to direct method, as this were the reformers who contributed: Godwin, Sawyer, Frank. Historical context, core principles like natural principle inspired by child language learning, or I would say acquisition for that, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay, there were early implementation and success stories of direct method being applied in various schools and colleges. This were the instance. Okay, Mounting, Soviet schools in Boston, and then fundamental principles of direct methods. Obviously, they will be different from grammar translation method, like monolingual instruction. Okay, classroom to be conducted exclusively in the target language. And everyday vocabulary, the focus was on practical everyday vocabulary and sentences. Techniques, oral communication, emphasis on oral skills through questions and answers and exchanges. And the approach adapted for direct method was inductive grammar teaching. Grammar taught inductively, not through explicit rules. Okay, inductively through context and gradually. Vocabulary, how was vocabulary taught in grammar? Taught through demonstration, objects, and pictures, unlike grammar translation method. And then abstract vocabulary was taught by association of ideas. So real life communication, that context. Okay. Pronunciation was given important, systematic attention to correct pronunciation, listening comprehension, okay, emphasized alongside speaking skills, which was again not the case in grammar translation method. Classroom practices here demonstrate, ask questions, correct mistakes. Okay, so there the earlier errors were not to be tolerated. You have to be perfect right from the beginning. So that was the problem. Use lesson plan over textbooks, followed a structured plan. So the strength of the direct method was effective in environment like Berlitz School, okay, suitable for motivated students and skilled teachers. Suitable for motivated student and skilled teachers. Again, this was taken as, I would say, difficulties in implementing a direct method, that skilled teachers were required for implementation of direct method. So gradually, again, that paved the way to audiolingual method, and then the subsequent methods which followed. Challenges, difficulty in white, okay, how there were, and in those days there was no communication, nor email or nor WhatsApp. It was very difficult. Okay, so the message was not conveyed. It was only books, right? Requires fluent teachers, which may not be available at all the places. So, good teachers, there was a lack, and sometimes counterproductive in the sense that all the students were not able to understand what was taught in the class. They needed some translation. Okay, so there again, translation or some help in their mother tongue. So after 1920s, there was a decline in direct method because used in non-commercial schools in Europe, then combination with grammar-based methods. Okay, so not direct method solely was used. It was again a grammar-based method, that it was a combination. And then these problems of direct method, they led to audiolingual approach, audiolingual method and oral approach. Okay. So this is how the story of from grammar translation method to direct method. And then we are talking about audiolingual now. So these are two things which I wanted to discuss in today's session, along with one important aspect. We should be, when we are talking about methods and approaches, we sometimes knowingly or unknowingly use this term simultaneously. So let's try to understand the difference between what is a method, what is the approach, and techniques. Okay, like our life itself, we people talk about, you should have a positive approach towards life, and then comes, okay, I want to have a positive approach towards life, which methods should I use? Okay, so you should like travel a lot, you should go to mountains, and then people talk about, oh, okay, you'll travel a lot, then you will talk about techniques. So life is all about approach, according to me. Okay, this just came to my mind, so I'm just sharing. It's about approach, and then in order to implement that approach, we'll need a method and then techniques. So it's a combination. Approach is supported by method, which is supported by techniques. So theories about nature of language and language learning provides the theoretical foundation. For example, people communicative method नहीं होता है, communicative approach होता है, right? Method, general plan for systematic presentation of language based on selected approach. So method is connected with approach. So method will be based on the approach which is selected. For example, audio-lingual method. Okay, it's a general plan. And technique is what you actually do in the real classroom situation. Specific activities or strategies used within a method to accomplish. So in that way, approach, methods, and techniques, they are interconnected. Examples: communicative approach, emphasis on interaction. Method, communicative language teaching as a method, operationalizes this approach. How to apply communicative approach in the classroom. And role play is a technique which will be used in the classroom. So this is how these things will be connected. Let's have a look at the same things again in detail. Like in Richards and Rogers, they have quoted American linguist Edward Anthony. Okay, in 1963, he identified these three levels, and there are various explanations given, but what we are discussing is centered to all that discussion. And organization, which he termed as approach, method, and technique. Let's see what Edward Anthony has to say about methods and approach. He says that an approach is, this arrangement is hierarchical in nature. The organizational key is that techniques carry out method, which is consistent with an approach. An approach is set of correlative assumptions dealing with nature of language teaching and learning. An approach is axiomatic in nature, and it describes the nature of subject matter to be taught. This is to a simplification of what we have discussed earlier. So this is an approach, and all three are connected. So underlying each method is a theory on the nature of language and a theory on nature of language, both of which comprises of an approach. These theories are derived from areas of linguistics, sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, like all this combined together, they come up with the idea that language should be taught in this particular way. So they give an overall approach, the theories, okay, which then further you need to support it with methods and techniques used in the classroom. So if we talk about theories of language, there is structural view of language, okay, how structurally various structures are organized. Functional view of language, how language functions. There are various views of language which support these approaches. How do learners learn a particular language? What are psychological and cognitive processes involved? Okay, all these things, they add to the combination or preparation of a particular approach. For example, habit formation, induction, inferencing, generalization. What are the conditions that need to be met for this learning processes to be activated? How? This is a situation. What are the learning conditions? Okay, so all these thoughts, they combine together. We call them as approach. These are the thoughts. Theory of language, how it works. Language is seen as a system of structurally related elements for the coding of meaning. For example, what dimension of language is prioritized? Grammatical dimension. Okay, what needs to be taught? Phonological units, grammatical units, operational, lexis, syntax, all those things combined together. Okay, so all this thinking goes into the preparation of an approach, okay, which then will be supported by a specific particular method. If language is viewed as a vehicle of expression of functional meaning, language functions, which we talk about, what dimension of language is prioritized? Semantic, communicative dimension. What needs to be taught? Function, notions of language. all these thoughts, they go into what we call approach, right? Method is an overall plan for orderly presentation of language material. Okay, approach is a general term which goes into which studies the issues which we discussed earlier in the earlier slide, no part of which contradicts, and all of which is based upon the selected approach. Okay, so approach, a particular approach adopted in the classroom, it has to be connected with a particular method. An approach is axiomatic, a method is procedural, the process to be followed in real classroom situation. And within an approach, there can be many methods. Various things can be tried out. Okay, this leads us to a technique. Technique is implementational, that which takes place in classroom. Like, I want to try out this method in real classroom situation. This is the technique I should be using. Technique must be consistent with a method and therefore in harmony with an approach as well. So all three, approach, method, and technique, they are interconnected. And that is how you have to understand them, and apart from understanding the questions. So in this slide may not be visible, but this is the details given in the book which I talked about, Methods and Approaches by Richards and Roger. Please refer to it. The books are also available, or I'll be forwarding the links to the organizer. They will be forwarding the same to you. The details are given, that what does the approach consist of in terms of methods, what are their learner's role, teacher's role, the syllabus model, okay? And then in terms of techniques, the classroom techniques, practices and behavior observed when the method is used, resources in terms of time, space, equipment used by teacher, patterns, okay, how the actual classroom situation takes place, how classroom is conducted, okay, all those things combined together makes the classroom interesting and makes it successful. So this image tells everything about what we understand by an approach, the outer circle, okay, which covers everything. Methods, specific, more pinpointed, okay, and techniques. This is the inner circle, is the real classroom situation, okay, and this is how you should understand the difference between an approach, method, and technique. Okay, this is the first part of my presentation. I think there will be a scheduled class at 4:30 as well. So I'll conclude the session right now. If you have any questions, you can ask right now, or tomorrow also I'm going to meet you for the next session that will be part 2 of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Student participants, any questions? They must be listening to this for the first time, as we have no ELT paper.
Okay. But yeah, fine. I'll be sharing the presentation with you as well.
It would take time to get used to. Okay.
No, definitely.
So
I'll be again meeting you tomorrow, sir, for
Sunil
the.
bhai.
Ji, sir. Ji.
Thank you very much. On
Okay,
behalf of the students, on
please,
behalf
sir.
of the head of the department and university and student participants, we thank you for sharing your valuable time with us. And even tomorrow, you are going to be here.
Yes, the second part.
Okay, 1.5, yes, 1 hour session will be there tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So we meet tomorrow, and I hope you know the time
Yeah, 11:45, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Dipali ji and you two will be there.
Okay, sir. Okay.
First Dipali ji and then you.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.